to pick up a few points that you've made. David Bull says, at what point does a mob become a respectable protest? Were the 2 million who protest against Iraq war a mob? No. I think this is really the point, that a protest, a march, has the capacity to become a mob. And people within a march can overtake that march, can subvert that march, and very easily. It's very easy. It's very easy, number one. Number two, I'm not convinced that a march any longer has the weight to shift the opinion of the authorities, has the weight to make a point. It is corralled, it is contained, it is the absurdity of the laws which are coming out of the Home Office at the moment makes it very clear, and they're not just laws of Suella Braverman, so some of them are Priti Patel, some of them even precede that. The idea that you can have a protest without making a noise, the idea that a protest can be silent, the idea, well, I mean, that is a version, but the idea that a protest, that you can contain the noise of a protest, is absurd. The word protest comes from Latin words meaning to make a noise, to shout. As in, for example, I protest my innocence. I shout my innocence. As indeed in the word Protestant, which is one of the early uses of that word in its formal sense. A Protestant is somebody who shouts the word of God. To protest. When I was much younger, I thought it was to object. No, that's a later understanding of the word. So protest, a protest march is a march with noise. And when that noise is contained, what's the point of the march? I think there's two little stories which I'd like to draw your attention to. The first is this image of I don't quite know what the flag is. I think it might be a homemade version of the Hamas flag, not quite the right colour, but it also is redolent of the ISIS flag, not quite the right imagery, but it's disturbing, and disturbing also the things which are being said, I think. I can't get the full gist of it, but that this is going on the sidelines of a peaceful march for Palestine, that's worrying. Listen to this, or watch this. And here is another where somebody waving an adapted LGBTQ plus flag is pursued around Trafalgar Square by zealots, I presume. Again, why? Why this anger of the mob? Look again. So what does a protest do? What does a protest march do? I don't believe it changes the mind of the government anymore. That possibly is done by debate, that possibly is done by social media, that possibly is done by the mainstream media, that possibly is done by contacts with MPs, But I don't think it's done by pouring onto the street in crowds that are controlled by the police, that are heavily paroled. I don't think that works anymore. I'm sorry. I think the crowd, I think the march, I think the protest march has a place, but not if it's going not to change minds, maybe to confirm that a large group of people agree with those minds which are being changed. But you need an argument to get out there, and it's not good enough simply to have a slogan. We need to have that debate. The slogans have been taken up by the politicians. The politicians are the ones who are banging on the dispatch box and reciting slogans. They seem to have forsaken debate. And so they get their inspiration from people marching in protests, because that is the limit of their debate. We need to set a better example to the politicians, and that's not by marching. And I think it's so, as I say, I think it's so easy for a march to be subverted by extremely nasty groups. Look for a moment now at a protest outside the BBC, which was utterly controlled and in a positive way. And look at the combination of the flags, the serenity of the protest. Here's a protest that I think actually had some sort of effect, not because it was a protest. It confirmed what was already being advanced on social media and in the national debate, that the BBC was wrong, and within a day or two the BBC changed its mind, the BBC relented. The BBC is now going to start defining Hamas as a terrorist organisation, which is what it should be doing. I think that had some effect. But my point is that I don't think a protest march anymore has much more to do than to confirm solidarity of the people who are banded together. That's a good thing, by the way. That's a good thing. But I don't think it changes the minds of the people in power, because the minds of the people in power have devised methods of anticipating the march, anticipating the action, and destroying its effect. So the only thing that a march or a protest can offer is the opportunity for others, for nasty elements in our society to subvert, hijack, or pervert it. I think we have to think again about how we protest, how we shout, how we get our voice to be heard. There are other methods, because in the end, a protest march, in its simplicity, right the way back to Yarrow, right the way back to the Middle Ages, a protest march was there to show solidarity of the people. But at what point does a protest get subverted and become a riot? And we remember the Thomas More speech in the Shakespeare, that a riot is something we want to avoid. A riot is not a statement of honest debate or honest protest. A riot is a statement of chaos. And what we need to do is to get to the point where there is debate with the people who are making decisions, where there is a clear position being marked out, and where the people in power can realize that they need to think again and be encouraged to think again, simply because of the wealth of numbers that is facing them. And incidentally, not only do I think protest marches don't work anymore, I also think petitions are fairly useless. They lead to a debate in the House of Commons in Parliament, a debate that takes place in Westminster Hall that nobody pays attention to. The powers in our society have got round these traditional ways of questioning authority. We need to be more inspired. We need to think again. And we need to project significantly more kindness, significantly more warmth for all parts of a debate and all parts of our society. If Mr. Sunak cannot reach out both to the Jewish community and to the Palestinian community, then we need to. Mr. Sunak should be giving a lead. Mr. Sunak needs to reach out and tell the Jewish community that it is loved and wanted in this country and that anti-Semitism is wrong. But he needs to also get behind the Palestinian community, get behind the broader Muslim community, and make it clear that that community also is loved and respected and wanted in this country. And then we need to solve the problems abroad. But this choosing sides and this partisan politics, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. We need to exert our influence, and we need to find a better way to do so. And marching just brings out, I'm afraid, marching just brings out the worst.